Hey, I'm Randy Younger, New York City's go to film enthusiast. Every week, I dive deep into the world of cinema with special guests from the New York City film scene. Whether I'm interviewing industry insiders or comparing the latest releases, there's always something for every movie lover. Join me as I explore the magic of film and discover what makes these movies unforgettable. Hey guys, I'm Randy Younger, and it's a special edition of Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together one frame at a time. And with me tonight, I have a very special guest, the acclaimed actor, Mr. Jonathan Silverman. He has the new dramedy out. It is called Feeling Randy. Wonderful film. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Randy, and thank you for letting me promote Feeling Randy.
Of course, anytime,
We're going
sir.
to see how many times we could say your name during the course of
Yeah,
this conversation.
I like it. I like it already.
Yeah.
Off to a very good start. And, and I did see the film last night. It is really good.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it. Thank you.
Yeah, it was really special, and it really told a very simple, heartfelt story. You play the dad, the stern dad in this, and I'm just curious, how did you get involved with the film?
Yeah, the he's not the nicest father in the world. It was tough, especially for me in real life, being a new dad myself.
Congratulations.
I thank you. I couldn't imagine treating my child the way this character treats his. But nonetheless, I was asked to jump on board, and I read the script and absolutely loved it, and was very moved by the story. And it's a period piece. It takes place in the '70s, and it's the story of a young man just trying to figure out who he is and what he is. And it's a time when people and young kids just didn't have the resources that they have now. Not that those resources are necessarily a good thing, but in terms of one's exploration and confusion, there weren't a lot of places and people to be able to have that ability to explore and to figure things out. And it was a much simpler time, nonetheless. The journey is just as complicated as it always is, and the father is not terribly accepting or terribly good. And I remember talking on the phone with Dean Lent, the writer director, who's so talented and so good, about why he would want me to play this part. And it's based on his actual life and childhood, and he had a rather awful relationship with his dad. And on paper, there's not a lot there in terms of any charm or any decency or any depth to this character.
Right.
And that's basically the relationship he had. And I suppose he reached out to me for whatever reason. I guess some people seem to think I have a sympathetic side to me, even without much conversation. So he was hoping that audiences might forgive the character just a little bit with me playing it. And I jumped in with both feet. I tried to make him as grounded as possible. So when he does do the awful things he does, that maybe someone might look at his side and have some understanding. But it's just awful. I know when we were filming it, it was really tough to just to get through some of those scenes.
Right, and I should have just prefaced this interview by saying spoiler-free zone, and there's a lot of stuff that is, really crazy in this movie, especially from your character. Um,
Yeah.
it's a crazy role, and I'm kind of surprised that you are in this as this character.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks. Believe me, I tried to figure out ways to say no and walk away, but I love I love a challenge, and I love the opportunity to just try something I've never tried before, and this definitely was one of them. I played murderers and criminals and cheating husbands, but I've never played an abusive father before. So add that to the list.
there you go, bucket list item
Yeah.
checked off. Did you reference any real life dads? Did you do any special preparation?
I did. I tried to gather as much information as I could from Dean Lent on his dad, being that he's a real character, and he shared stories, he shared photos, which I found really helpful. Just sort of working on the exterior and then on in. And I tried to find a character from a '70s movie to just sort of use as a touchstone. And I came up with one of my favorite people, and I got to work with him once, and I got to dig into his life a little bit. Wonderful, wonderful man. So I'm certainly not using his life as a basis of the character, but I was using a little bit of Walter Matthau as Buttermaker in Bad News Bears.
Okay.
If he went even darker, and I sort of borrowed his look and his hairstyle and just sort of his grumpy drunk attitude, and
Nice.
then sort of channeled that into the character, because everybody loved the performance, and everybody who ever watched a Walter Matthau performance on screen just automatically fell in love with him. So I kind of tried to use that for the charm, and
Mhm.
then let the words and the feelings come over me, and come out of me. But yeah, Walter was my inspiration for this one.
That's so crazy because
Yeah, I know.
The Odd Couple 2 is actually one of my favorite
Is
comedies.
it really? Well, of course,
Yeah.
as an Unger yourself, you've got to
Thank
have some.
you. Thank you.
Yes,
And
yes,
funny bit of trivia. So my full name is Randall Unger.
yes.
Tony Randall
Oh,
was
come on.
Felix Unger. Isn't that weird? Yeah.
That's crazy. That's
It's
crazy.
so, I know.
I mean, as a member of the Neil Simon Repertory Company, and just as a fan of all of his work, Felix and Oscar are just the two greatest characters, the best buddy characters ever created.
I
So
know.
when I got a chance to be in it and to play, Oscar
Brucey.
Madison's son, I was thrilled. I would have paid him.
I could definitely see you in a revival of that on Broadway or
I
something.
would love to do that.
I don't
Let's
know who
let's
you would
get.
play though. You could probably play both.
Um, I would be honored to play one of the cops in the poker scene. Whatever it takes, I would love to be a part of that project.
Great. So good. Yeah, that's such an underrated comedy, The Odd Couple 2. You never hear about it.
You're so right. I mean, sequels
Um,
sequels are tricky, especially
yeah,
sequels to classic films.
right.
But that one especially, considering it was the two of them reprising their most beloved roles. It was Gene Smart had a major role in it.
Christine Baranski.
Christine Baranski. I mean, if you go back and watch it again, hopefully it'll have a second life. But I think all the success that Walter and Jack had later in their careers, with the grumpier old men movies, it just kind of got lumped into that
Yeah.
category. So maybe it wasn't as special at the time, but hopefully people will go back and give it another look.
I hope so too. That and Out to Sea. That was just a great movie.
Right?
It's a
Adorable,
fun movie.
adorable.
Awesome. I love it. And so since we're on the track of your filmography, basically,
Okay.
I'm gonna mention Weekend at Bernie's 1 and 2.
All right.
Another sequel that I mean, it's not the greatest, respectfully,
I
but
did do I did do a worse sequel, the sequel to Caddyshack. I was in that, so that might be the worst of the sequels I've been a part of.
is
Um,
that just
but
like are you just like typecast in bad sequels or?
I like to say yes to projects. You always jump in hoping it's going to be awesome.
That's
Doesn't
right.
always work out that way. But then again, I was lucky to get cast in the first Weekend at Bernie's. But I certainly didn't think it would turn into a success that people are still enjoying decades later. So you never know. You just jump in and you hope for the best.
It's a strange premise for sure, but it kind of holds
Right.
up. It's just a fun. It's a very morbid but really fun movie. It's like very
Uh,
weak balance.
Very, very dark comedy. The writer who recently passed away himself, Robert Klein, wrote one of the best dark comedies ever called Where's Papa with Ruth Gordon and George Segal. And when I saw his name attached to the script of Weekend at Bernie's, and mind you, I was 23 or 4 years old. What the hell did I know? But I went, oh my God, the guy who wrote Where's Papa? This is one of the funniest movies ever. And true to form, this being basically a script about a dead guy.
And also
Um, uh,
the director of First Blood, I believe.
yeah, right. What a combo. I mean, Ted Kotcheff is an amazing director and a lovely, smart guy, and but mostly does these big action adventure films like Rambo.
Right.
So it was a bizarre combination, and Andrew McCarthy,
Mhm.
as huge as he was, especially at the time, coming off all the the Brat Pack movies and and all the successes he has had, not known for comedy, and talk about being willing to try anything. He did, and he was hysterical.
Do you still keep in touch?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we just saw each other a couple of weeks ago, and just mostly we were just going over the absurdity of the relevance of this film that we made in 1980 whatever,
Nice.
and people are still talking about today, and it's becoming a reference. It's not even just, oh, I saw that movie. It's I mean, it was talked about at the Republican convention, and anytime a political leader or any famous person is rumored to be dying or ill, there's Andrew and I propping the person up, superimposed in a new meme.
Oh my gosh.
It just doesn't go away. So maybe we could recreate the magic. I don't know if a third is necessary, but maybe there's a way to bring the boys back for something.
That would be amazing. I
That would
would
be
be
fun.
first. I'd be first in line, and hopefully
Thank you.
I'll interview you for that too.
Thanks, Randy.
Yeah, maybe even a reboot would be in order. I don't know. Um,
I'd be up for it.
so feeling Randy, this movie again, very important, tells a very special story. What do you hope audiences ultimately take away from the film?
There's just a great deal of innocence in it, and not to compare it to anything I've done. But one of my first movies was a movie called Brighton Beach Memoirs,
Mhm.
and it too was about a teenage boy living in a different time and era. This was in the 30s, and just coming to explore his place and his sexuality, and stories about people just trying to figure themselves out in an endearing, honest way. They're they're just so powerful and unique and simple. And I suppose this particular film might have a connection with young men who are going through similar circumstances. But I think anybody who had a childhood and is just struggling to figure out what it all means will hopefully be touched by it, and hopefully it's funny enough that it'll make you laugh. But there's some rather dark, scary, sad scenes as well. So
Yeah.
I just hope it just slightly touches and hits those moments.
And your character is definitely dark and sad. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah,
I was
he's
expecting
he's
the 80s Jonathan, the 80s, 90s Jonathan Silverman to pop out and
uh-huh.
bring
Just
us some
kidding.
light.
Yeah, there's no light in this guy. It's awful, and I was so glad when some of those shooting days were done, and I just couldn't wait to get home, bathe, cleanse, and then just give my kid a big hug and tell her how much I love her and how proud I am of her, because it's so scary to think that some kids grow up without that.
But you know what? That's the true testament to an actor, right? I mean, you're trying new
Absolutely,
things, you're diving into new waters, and
absolutely.
it could be scary, it could be exciting, or both.
Yeah.
I
No,
don't know your process, but
no, you nailed it. I mean, I don't. It's not necessarily a story I've ever told because it's just kind of happened. But our daughter's 7, and she sees mommy and daddy, do what we do for a living, and she gets such a thrill. And she's been around sets since she was born. We, for good or for bad, even put her in something that we did. My wife starred on a TV show, which is wonderful. If you haven't seen it, please do. It's available on the CW streaming thing platform. It's called Moonshine, and
okay.
takes place in this little fishing village, this little beach community in Nova Scotia. And there was I played her jerky husband on it, but there was one episode that was a flashback episode to the early 70s, ironically, and we needed a kid to play 2 or 3 year old Jen's character. And the director, who has become an incredibly close person, and the showrunner, asked us, "Can we borrow your daughter to play these like 4 or 5 scenes?" And we're like, "No, her life is going to be messed up enough as it is. We don't want her to be an actor." but we let her do it. She had the time of her life. So yeah, she loves singing and she loves songwriting. And right now she's involved in a 6 and 7 year old production of Legally Blonde
Okay.
at a tiny little, just like an after school, once a week theater thing.
Okay.
The show is coming up a week from today. We're all very excited.
Oh.
But because it's mostly girls in this company, she is playing the role of Werner, who is basically the male lead, the bad guy.
Okay.
And at first she was so sad. It's like, do they not think I'm pretty enough to play a girl? And do they not think I'm good enough to be one of the girls? And we're like, honey, if you're going to be an actor, it's your job to take roles that you don't necessarily
Mhm.
think that you could play, but it's our job to make them as poignant and as real as possible. And it's so fun to play the bad guy. And anyway, she's loving it. We'll see what happens with the actual performance, but now it's she's becoming a future generation acting kid, and we'll see what happens. But your your
Is
your
that
your
what
point
you?
is very well taken.
Thank you. Is that what you envisioned for your children for to bring
God, no.
into this world?
Um, I want her to do whatever she wants to do, and she's brilliant, and she's going to be fantastic at whatever she explores. But if she wants to act, I will support her. She is such a talented songwriter, and again, she's 7 years old, but
Mm.
she just grabs the guitar, and she's just this young Taylor Swift, and I don't know where she gets these powerful lyrics from, and it just comes to her. I mean, I would not be able to come up with half of the things that she creates. So I'm excited to see whatever it is she's going to do. And if she could work behind a desk, 9 to 5, or she could be out on the road or busking in Central Park and with a hat in front of her. I don't care. She's gonna be great.
Are you musical yourself?
No, not at all. My wife is. My wife could sing. My wife could dance. I can't. I've had to for movie and TV gigs before. I've had to sing, and it's not something that comes easy for me. And I do the work, and I'm passable, but I'm not
Okay.
good. Yeah.
I like the honesty. That's very good.
Thank you.
Um, something else I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
There was a sitcom you did in the 90s, The Single Guy,
Yes.
which I used to watch pretty religiously as a
You
kid.
you you had to because it was must see TV. They
Yeah.
made you watch it.
Was that Thursday nights, I believe?
The best thing about it was the time slot. It was Thursday nights before a show called Friends. Sorry, right after a show called Friends and before a show called Seinfeld. So I
Oh
mean, the
my
time
gosh.
slot was golden. They could have put on Snow for 30 minutes,
Yeah.
and we would have been in the top five. And we were in the top five for many many months. And then they moved us towards the end of the run, the second season, to Tuesdays at 9:30, and we got
Wow.
canceled. But yeah, for the longest time, we were a hit show.
You were sandwiched between two of the biggest shows of all time. That's
Yep.
crazy. That's very cool. What was it like working with Ernest Borgnine? Amazing.
Oh, I loved Ernest Borgnine. He was already well into his 80s by the time we were shooting this,
Hmm.
and he certainly didn't have to work. But he just loved working. He just loved, being the everyman. And he would only be in like 2 or 3 scenes an episode. He played the doorman of this
Mhm.
little,
Manny, right?
Manny the doorman, Manny Cordoba, the Cuban doorman. And he would just, be the fatherly figure who would give me, advice on life and dating. And, he would always have the funniest lines of the show. But he just loved being a part because it was a mostly young ensemble of those of us, in our 20s or early 30s. And Ernie would just be there sitting in his director's chair. He would never go to his dressing room. He would just watch every moment and root us on and laugh and then tell stories. I mean, stories about Montgomery Clift
Wow.
and he just lived such a life and such joy and I got to hang out with him a bunch after the show had its run, and I treasured that man. Such a remarkable human.
So it's true, like the persona that he portrayed, the characters that he portrayed, he was so like so happy, so full of life.
Yeah, right.
So
I
that's
mean,
I guess that's basically who he was.
he was so full of life,
That's awesome.
and could tell a dirty joke better than anybody. I mean, he just loved to be bawdy and silly, and he was just everybody's buddy. He just everybody adored him, and he just loved everyone even more.
So you were friendly with Walter Matthau, Ernest Borgnine.
Right? I've worked
That's
with
all you need
some.
right there. I mean,
I'm so lucky. I got to
oh,
work with some of the greatest people ever.
hmm,
And they're not literally, they're not around anymore. I'm so lucky.
right. That's awesome.
I even did a movie once, not a good movie, but I did a movie once written by Carrie Fisher, and it starred Elizabeth Taylor, Shirley MacLaine, Joan Collins, and Debbie Reynolds.
Wow.
And it was a very silly, campy movie called These Old Broads. And none of it made any sense. But just to be on the set with those women, oh my God, and the stories and the banter, it's just phenomenal.
Gosh.
So
I
yeah,
didn't
again, very lucky. Nobody saw it. It was a
I
made for
didn't
TV
yeah.
movie.
I missed that
Um,
one, unfortunately.
Also something that maybe you'll see one day and go, oh my God, what? Elizabeth Taylor, Shirley MacLaine, and Debbie Reynolds. I mean, just the backstory of those ladies.
Were
But
you like the
yeah,
son, like the quirky son of all?
yeah. So the premise of the movie, if there was a premise, was Elizabeth Taylor was the agent to these three stars of the 50s who were asked to be reunited for like a musical. And I was the son, I was Shirley MacLaine's son, and a director who was asked to bring these ladies who now hate each other back together. But because they all liked me and were part of, raising me, they thought, I might have the goods to make it happen. And, you know, campiness ensued.
Right. You've done a lot of obscure stuff over the years, I must say.
Yeah, I just I take what's offered to me
Hey,
and try and make the best of them.
have you ever gone behind the camera?
I have hardest thing I've ever done. I've directed a few movies. I directed a TV show. My next project is probably going to be something I'm directing. I love doing it. Again, nothing is as hard as directing. Not that acting is easy, but it sure seems like the lazy way to make money compared to the amount of work that goes into directing and producing. But I do love it. I do love it. But man, it's difficult.
So do you prefer one over the other? Are they kind of the same for you?
Um, I mean, I prefer acting.
Hmm.
Um, I love working my tail off and then sort of saying goodbye to the project. And in directing, you're involved for months and months beforehand and putting all the pieces together. And on shooting days, whether it's a long project or a short project, it's a 24-hour job. There's no rest. And then the movie wraps, and then you're editing it and working on it for months, even a year. So it's a huge commitment. But I do love it. It's just a different beast.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's the same industry, just a very different animal. It's crazy.
Yep, exactly.
And going back to the to feeling Randy, what was it like working with the rest of the cast? What was there like was there a collaborative spirit on set?
The kid who plays the title character, the lead, is so phenomenal. His name is Reed Miller,
Mm.
and he's got such charisma and depth and soul. And we did a table read before we, did any sort of rehearsal and obviously filming. And I just, reached out to him and said, "Listen, I'm here for you as a fellow performer and the actor playing your dad, and I'm just here to support you as much as possible because the stuff we have to do together, basically the stuff I say and do to him, is just so repulsive." But I was such a supporter and champion of his. I just think he's a delight, and I can't wait to see what he's going to do in the future. And the movie is mostly kids, and not kids, but young actors in their 20s just starting out. So it was just great to be around that energy and excitement. And I just remembered the time when I was their age, and the journey that's about to begin, and the unknown and the fears. It was great.
It's pretty accurate, the way the story is told and the way they're
It is.
portraying these characters. I mean, I didn't grow up in the 70s myself, but I'm sure that was pretty on point with how it really was.
Yeah, I mean, you had to get information where you could, and mostly, it was your dumb best friend giving you all this foolish nonsense, and you had to just kind of believe it or not.
Right. Now you're making the behind the scenes stuff sound very like likable and easygoing, but were there any challenges on set?
You know, this film was all shot in LA
Hmm.
on a micro budget. And I don't think it necessarily shows. I think it was done with such love and care
Hmm.
that it doesn't feel like it was done for whatever the amount was. So I was thrilled to see the quality of it. But anytime you're working on something with such few, frills, yeah, it gets to be tough. And there's one particular scene where I'm not wearing a lot of clothes, and I'm sort of brought into the room from the outside. And I just remember it was a terribly cold night, freezing, windy. But those are just the various things you have to get through and suck up and do.
Fair enough. Okay, I like to hear that. Yeah. So, are there any projects you're working on now that you can discuss?
Yeah, I have another little movie coming out soon. It's called Floaters, a sweet camp story. Also play the dad of one of the leads. And my wife and I just did a very fun episode of 911, the Ryan Murphy series going into year 47. And we played a bickering husband and wife going through divorce. And man, we had fun just screaming at each other, just so much hate and nastiness, and then something physically goes terribly wrong with me, which just adds to the excitement. But speaking of actors who direct, Chad Lowe directed this episode, and I've known Chad
Oh,
since we were teenagers, and I was just so proud of him. He's just turning into a dynamite director of mostly 1 hour television, and I was thrilled to get a chance to work with him, and that I think that's airing very soon. We just shot it, but from what I understand, I think it's going to be on in a week or two.
it's funny that you mentioned that dynamic between, director and friend. I also, and one of your friends, I actually was an extra on a TV show called
Yeah.
Family, which that episode was directed by Andrew McCarthy.
Oh, great. Sure.
It was so
Oh,
random. It was in Queens Center Mall, and
right.
I was just shopping for shoes, for dress shoes. And I see all this crowd in the food court, like that area, and I'm like, what's going on here? And then this extra, she's like, oh, you want to be in the shot? Oh, okay. And
Sure.
yeah, and then they had me go up and down this escalator like five, six times.
Oh, that's great.
And it was my first experience as an extra. I'll never forget that. And Andrew McCarthy was there, and I was like very
Um,
smart. Yeah.
Andrews turned into a very busy, very wonderful director, and I always knew he would be. As a matter of fact, when we were shooting Weekend at Bernie's, there's one particular scene that takes place in my character's family apartment, and my dad comes into the room. I'm trying to like make out with this girl, and I lied and said it was my place, and that's my butler. And the actor we shot in North Carolina, and the actor who was supposed to play that part, I don't know if he missed his flight, something happened. He never made it. And so we didn't know what to do. And rather than reschedule everything, Ted Kotcheff said, well, I'll play the part. So he just took all his clothes off and he did the scene in his underwear. But we needed someone to direct that scene. It was a pretty big scene. And so we tapped Andrew to direct it. And he jumped in. And
Wow.
from that day on, I was like, well, you've got to wear that hat more often. You're so good at this. And
Huh.
he did a series for Jenny Bands called Lipstick Jungle, starring Brooke Shields. And Bands let him direct an episode and got him started. And Andrew and I were both on the final season of Good Girls, which was a terrific show for NBC and Netflix. And Andrew played a bad guy, a hitman on it, and he directed a bunch of episodes. And I played a Secret Service agent. But
Cool.
Andrew's directing so many of the Blacklist episodes with his buddy James Spader, and he directed many Orange is the New Black. So he's dynamite at it. I hope he keeps going.
Yeah, he's very good. And I also met him at the New York Comic Con. Very
Right?
personable, very
Yeah.
sweet, very
Yeah.
nice.
Good.
And you mentioned Catherine Mary Stewart. It's funny because she's actually going to be on Long Island at an event at a movie.
Okay.
I think it's an event for Night of the Comet. She's going to be
Oh
there.
yeah. Oh great. Are you going to that?
I'm probably going to go. So
Okay.
I'm throwing it out there for you. I know you're in LA, but it would be kind of cool if you guys showed up.
Yeah, invite us. We'll show up.
Yeah,
But say hi to Miss Stewart, who's
yeah.
married now, and I believe has a different last name. I can't remember what it is, but the last time I saw her, she went, "Now I go by."
Oh,
She's doing great.
that's awesome. What about Terry Kaiser? You keep in touch with him at all, or?
Yes, yes. Talked to Terry a couple of weeks ago. He's doing great. And one of the things I directed was a TV show. It was called Significant Mother, and one of the episodes was basically an homage to Weekend at Bernie's.
Hmm.
So I asked Terry if he would come and do a little cameo, and he did. And Terry's just great. I mean, he's in his 80s now, and he has more energy than ever, and he's just a darling, wonderful man.
I met him. I interviewed him actually at New Jersey Horror Con a couple years back.
Okay.
He was very cool. I must
He's
say.
great.
Yeah.
He's great.
But
So many good stories.
it's the 35th anniversary. Have you guys done anything? Did you do anything the 30th or?
Well, we've been asked to do some of these Comic Cons, so stay tuned.
Okay.
We'll see what happens. I'm not so good at those things. I feel odd just sitting behind a desk and signing autographs, but the
Fine.
Q&As are fun,
Yeah.
and hearing stories about what the movie meant to people. So yeah, I'll probably pop up at one of them.
Well, we look forward to seeing you there. That'd be amazing.
Thanks.
So, Feeling Randy premieres theatrically at the Lumiere Theater in Los Angeles, November
Yes.
1st, and on major VOD streaming platforms beginning November 5th.
Yes, please watch it. It's a good one. It's a good one. Thanks.
Yeah, it's a really special film, and you're great in it, and your career has been great, and it's still going. Keep going strong.
Thank you, Randy Younger.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Jonathan
Thank you.
Silverman.
Thank
I'm
you.
Randy Younger. This has been Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together, one frame at a time. We'll see you next time. Take care.